second year. So you've done a little bit of history of architecture, maybe, and stuff. So I'm not sure if you kind of came across this group that are, oops. No, don't make changes. Okay. Just to get into this thing.
Help to enable
joking,
whatever.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. So yes, when actually you're trying to kind of unpack, let's say, this fantastic term of ubiquitous technologies and elective media or elective technologies and stuff, obviously all that comes from, informatics, computing, etc. But somehow there is, when those, let's say, technologies are kind of implemented in an urban surface in the urban landscape, there was a need in the beginning, even nowadays, to try to theorize a couple of the ideas and how you could use those particular technologies for experiencing in a different manner the city, the urban environment, and that was one of the purposes of quite a few of the locative technology or locative media, either experiments, projects, and art projects. So quite a few of the things that we'll talk about are more related with the artistic experimentations, but somehow they're very related as well with what we could call, in a more kind of a broader way, architecture, in a sense. So we have kind of questions, particularly when we bring this extra element, urban space, of the question, how will ubiquitous technology affect our experience of the city if we need to use them, let's say. So if you use, let's say, GPS, geotagging, what will be this experience, this new experience of the city? And a possible claim or kind of answer may be that the potential for reconnectedness to social and physical surroundings. And this is the interesting thing when you have, let's say, definitions of that manner, where you bring the social within the definition, not only the physical, so how you bring the two together. And then you have further questions of that kind again. So how will the technological development transform the city as we know it? Could we have transformations on the urban surface by using these particular technologies? And if this is true, how could that be? In the physical setting, and how will this augmentation of physical spaces affect and change everyday life? Okay, it's not about only going from one space to the other. Could there be other possibilities by using these particular technologies? Could we say that would bring an extra element in our experience, urban experience, that could be play? Quite a lot of those particular technologies are related with play, with gaming in particular. So, and which new promises and opportunities do emerging technologies hold for the revitalization of public space, which is something that I'm pretty sure very crucial for architects and urban designers in particular. This idea of revitalization, we're not talking anymore about regeneration. This is almost like a no-no word nowadays in the millennium. Regenerate the city or the urban centers for many different reasons. And the sense of social cohesion and urban life in general. So these were actually terms, particularly the social cohesion, if I go back to the urban regeneration, that was very much in favor when we were talking about regenerating urban centers. So there were particular plannings or designs for doing that. Nowadays you have this extra element of bringing this almost like, I want to say, but let's say use the visual within that particular physical setting and how you could bring the two together and what new ideas for revitalization and social cohesion you may have by having this extra element, the visual maybe, or the digital in this particular case, let's say the digital right now. So somehow, I mean, in order to kind of start looking of how we could probably answer these questions in relation to the digital. You could go about and look of three different, let's say, readings. The first one is Jonathan Rabin is mostly known as a literary person, let's say an author, a novel author. But in the mid-90s he wrote a book called The Soft City that was very much influential for urban theorists, architects, urban designers, similar with, I don't know if you're familiar with the Italo Calvino book, The Invisible Cities, that probably your tutors now or later on they may actually tell you, have a look at this book, although it's a literature book, you will get ideas about the city and imagining the city. Similar-wise, Jonathan Rabin in the mid-90s, he wrote The Soft City, and what he meant by soft city was exactly that, was the opposite of the hard city of architecture and planning. And it was about the city of people and how people themselves could change and transform the city. So it was a tactile city, it was a changeable city, the movable city. And he gave certain kind of examples of that in a very literary form. So one way is to look through this understanding. The other one is through Henri Lefebvre, a kind of, let's say, a continental or the West French philosopher, who a prolific writer, but who became mostly known for his writings about urbanism, in particular, from the 40s to the 90s. Just 1 year before he died in 1991, he wrote his writings on the cities, writing on the cities. But he's mostly known for two books, which I'm not going to talk in much detail today, which is A Production of Space, and the other one, The Rage of the City. Both books became almost like the Bible for radical, urbanists or anti-modernist urbanists, thinking that these two books were written in the times, in the high times of Le Corbusier's kind of influence in France, and not only all around the world in a sense. So he wrote this book, and he was saying that the right to the city involves two principal rights for the inhabitants, urban inhabitants: the right for participation, the right to appropriation. And as you will see from the examples that we use later on, both of these are very present to this particular digital experimentations, let's say, through ubiquitous technology. And the final one, which make a big difference, it was a book, it was a small article, paper you could call it, formulary for a new urbanism, that was written in 1954, 57, I'm not very sure about the date, but even Travlou. And the interesting thing is that he was a 19-year student at Sorbonne, very young, but very influential because of this particular writing that influenced as well the beginnings of SI, which is the Situationist International, which I'll tell you in a few slides now. So what this person and later on the rest of the Situationists proposed was again an anti-urbanist approach of the city. They were very against and critiquing, obviously, the Le Corbusier's projects and the planning that happened in France and beyond France, saying that what happened out of that was a very blink and blank and, landscape, leaving few things for the residents to do within and on this particular landscape, urban landscape. It was mostly about traffic of commuting from one place to the other, dedicated mostly to the car. So there was no, ideas about how the residents, how the walker, let's say, or the doula, will move around and explore the city. So there was no necessity of exploration in the city. So let's say that all these three different, readings from different epochs, but times, kind of influence quite a lot, let's say, a couple of the people that they kind of experiment with the digital, and particularly with the ubiquitous. And here, furthermore, you have the beginning the first line or sentence from Formulary for a New Urbanism, which is obviously it's written in a more literary language than expected, but it made some points here, like we are boarding the city, we really have to strain to still discover mysteries on the sidewalk billboards, the latest state of humor and poetry. So they were talking about how could we get the poetic within the city, how do we actually explore the mysteries, what is hidden behind what is in front of us. And you have on top, which has nothing to do with Ivan's writing, although there is, you can see visually the connection there. You have tagging graffiti time, which is boring on top of a